Imagine that you are creating a fabric of human destiny.
Do not go gentle into that good night.
We must never forsake that vision, that human dream, that unshakable faith.
You may have the courage to look up.
Quantum theory describes the behavior of light and matter on an atomic scale. We usually think of light as a wave and electrons as particles. Electrons within a TV set can be described as particles. In other situations, electrons are better described as waves. Suppose we do an experiment using marbles to represent particles. They roll through open door A and are counted. The graph shows the greatest concentration of marbles near door A. A similar graph is produced when the marbles roll through door B. If both doors are open, we might expect the graph to look like the sum of the two previous graphs. Let's do the experiment. The results match our prediction. To compare particle and wave behavior, we replace the marbles with water and the counters with detectors for wave intensity. With a single door open, the results for waves look the same as for particles. What happens when both doors are open? We get an entirely different graph. The waves passing through the two doors interfere with each other, heightening the wave in some places and canceling it in others. A maximum occurs along the midline between the two doors. Imagine that we do this experiment with electrons. A hot wire emits electrons, and they are counted by detectors at the far end of the apparatus. We adjust the source of electrons so that on average there is only one electron in the apparatus at any given time. When only one door is open, results are similar to both particles and waves. What kind of graph would you expect to see when both doors are open? Remember, only one electron is traveling from source to detector at any one time. If you predicted that the graph would look like the graph for particles, you would be in good company. Most scientists would have said the same thing prior to the advent of quantum theory. In actuality, the electrons do interfere with each other, behaving like waves. But how can the electrons interfere with one another when they pass through the apparatus one at a time? This is the question that makes quantum theory non-intuitive. It may not seem possible, but this is the way nature works.
Volcanoes are holes or vents in the Earth's crust, created when molten material or magma under the crust is forced upward through the surface. Magma collects in a chamber beneath the crust. Pressure increases, forcing it up through cracks and fissures, and a conduit to the surface is created. Hot gases try to escape, but are trapped in the magma. The surface begins to bulge. Finally, the pressure can no longer be contained. Gases and fragments of Earth are released in a violent explosion. A volcano may erupt many times during its lifetime of thousands of years. Material expelled during the eruptions gradually builds up a cone-shaped mountain. The throat of the volcano is called the central vent. Usually, there is a bowl-shaped crater at the top of the central vent. Volcanic eruptions can be described as explosive or quiet. When the magma is sticky and contains lots of gas, then eruptions tend to be explosive. Hot debris particles, called pyroclastics, are expelled during violent explosions. Heavier pieces land near the crater and serve to build the cone-shaped mountain. Lighter pieces can be carried by the wind for hundreds of miles. When the magma is more fluid and contains less gas, then eruptions are quiet. Molten rock or lava spills out of the volcano and cools on its slopes. Alternating eruptions of pyroclastics and lava build the mountain layer by layer. A fault is a fracture in the Earth's crust characterized by an uneven crack that may run for many kilometers. The two sides of the fault line are actually two gigantic moving sections or plates of the Earth's crust. The crack in the Earth is created because one plate is moving relative to the other. When the plates move past each other, the relative motion is horizontal, and we have a strike-slip fault. The San Andreas fault, for example, is a strike-slip fault. When the plates press toward each other, large blocks of rock may be lifted up, producing thrust faults. When plates move away from each other, rocks may be lowered, producing downdropped faults. The amount of vertical displacement is called the fault's throw. Faults vary in throw from a few meters to hundreds of meters. Movement of the Earth's great plates is usually slow and steady, causing gradual changes along fault lines. Sometimes, the rock along a fault locks and stress builds up. Earthquakes occur when the rocks break apart and stress is suddenly released. The plates can displace several meters in an instant, creating a violent wrenching of the Earth's crust, toppling man-made structures and triggering landslides and mud flows.
Earthquakes like the one that struck Kobe, Japan on January 17, 1995 are massively destructive. These earthquakes are caused by huge pieces of the Earth's crust, called tectonic plates, either sliding against each other or pushing into one another. While the science of predicting earthquakes has not yet been perfected, new structures are designed to minimize damage and casualties. When an earthquake strikes, stand in a doorway away from chimneys and windows, or get under a sturdy piece of furniture.
The human ear consists of outer, middle, and inner parts. The outer ear includes the auricle, the auditory canal, and the eardrum, or tympanic membrane. The middle ear contains 3 small bones connecting the eardrum to the inner ear. They are the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. The inner ear contains the cochlea, housing the sound-analyzing cells, which are connected to the brain through the auditory nerve. Sound waves enter the ear, causing changes in air pressure in the auditory canal. The eardrum vibrates, and the waves are amplified and transmitted by the middle ear to a membrane in the wall of the cochlea. Fluid in the cochlea is set in motion. The vibrations are detected by nerve fibers, which transmit signals to the brain through the auditory nerve. The nerve fibers are frequency sensitive. The lowest frequencies are detected by fibers at the deepest part of the cochlea. When a body cell divides, each new daughter cell must carry with it identical genetic information. A cell does this through a process called mitosis. When cell division begins, the genetic code is replicated exactly, and two identical sets of chromosomes are made from one. The membrane surrounding the nucleus becomes less distinct, and the chromosomes become more distinct. Now we see there are pairs of chromosomes attached to each other at the center. Spindle fibers radiate and begin to form between the centrioles. The centrioles stop at opposite poles of the cell. The two identical parts of each double chromosome are called chromatids. Paired chromatids align on the center of the cell. Chromatids separate and move apart along the spindle fibers toward each pole. The cell begins to pinch inward. With the chromosomes now at either pole, the spindles break up. The cell membrane divides and the nuclei form. Chromosomes become less and less distinct. When division is complete, there are two new cells, genetically similar to the original.
An ordinary light source produces an ordinary light
Most of us don't think about how our everyday activities might influence the global environment. An example is our use of chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. These compounds are useful as refrigerants, solvents, and aerosol propellants. When released into the air, these chemicals disperse throughout the atmosphere. In the upper atmosphere, there is a layer containing a small amount of ozone. The ozone layer is important to living things because it blocks harmful ultraviolet rays from reaching the surface. A few years ago, scientists discovered that CFCs, even in very small amounts, cause ozone to break down. When CFCs reach the upper atmosphere and are exposed to ultraviolet light, they release a highly reactive gas, chlorine monoxide. The chlorine monoxide acts as a catalyst. It breaks down ozone molecules, but it isn't changed itself. A single molecule of chlorine monoxide can destroy thousands of ozone molecules. A severe depletion of the ozone layer would result in an increase in cases of skin cancer, eye cataracts, and suppression of the immune system in humans and other species. Food crops sensitive to ultraviolet rays could also be affected. In 1984, a hole in the ozone layer was discovered over Antarctica. More recently, a similar hole has been discovered that extends over the Arctic, Scandinavia, and North America. We can help protect the ozone layer by being careful about what chemicals we release into the air. If you watch the moon over the course of several days, you will see that its appearance changes. The varying appearances, called phases, depend upon the relative positions of the Sun and Moon. At different times of the month, the Sun illuminates different parts of the Moon. When the Moon is between the Sun and the Earth, we cannot see any of the illuminated side of the Moon. The Moon is dark. We call this phase the new Moon. The amount of lighted surface visible from the Earth begins to grow. We see a waxing crescent. When the Moon reaches first quarter, we see half of it lit. As the illuminated portion grows, we have a waxing gibbous moon. A full moon occurs when the Moon reaches the side of the Earth opposite from the Sun. Gradually, less and less of the bright side of the Moon is visible. This is the waning gibbous phase. Three-quarters of the way through the Moon's cycle, we have the last quarter phase, when half of the Moon is lit. As a waning crescent, the Moon diminishes to a thin sliver. Returning to a new moon after 29.5 days, or 1 lunar month. As the Moon revolves around the Earth, it rotates on its own axis at the same rate it revolves. Therefore, the Moon always keeps the same face toward the Earth. Nuclear fission is the process in which atoms of certain elements split, producing heat. A commonly used element is uranium-235. The nucleus of the uranium-235 atom contains 235 particles called protons and neutrons. In naturally occurring samples of uranium, where the concentration of nuclei is low, free neutrons move about, passing through or colliding with the nuclei without effect. Occasionally, a neutron causes a nucleus to split or fission into two parts. This event releases energy and produces 2 or 3 new free neutrons. However, the free neutrons are quickly lost, so no sustained reaction occurs. In a nuclear reactor, the uranium-235 fuel has been enriched to increase the concentration of fissionable nuclei. Free neutrons released after the fission of one nucleus have a higher probability of hitting other uranium-235 nuclei and causing them to fission. When, on average, each fission results in one new fission, a sustained nuclear reaction occurs. In a reactor, the rate of reaction is controlled, and the heat produced is used to generate electrical power. When on average more than one new fission is initiated for each fission that occurs, then an uncontrolled chain reaction results. A free-running nuclear chain reaction can release an enormous amount of energy in a tiny fraction of a second.